Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. You know, you reflect back and you think of some of the folks that you've met over the years, and you know, the Scott Martin it was an honor to meet him, as it is everyone else that you meet, and it takes an event like what happened on the weekend with the Bassmaster Classic to just reflect over some of the people that I've met and some of the people you've met through OFC Nation and CFN. Anyway, folks, happy Monday. Thanks so much for joining us, as you always do every Monday. I truly appreciate the dedication, support, loyalty of our fans. And we try to give as much back, or at least show our appreciation as much as we can. And, you know, I'm going to take the time because there's a few gems on here right now. Fernando, thanks so much for bringing to my attention about YouTube that we didn't share the link last week. Thanks so much for that, Fernando. And as always, sticking around and supporting us as you do every Monday. Of course, Brad, that was a great post you made about, you know, yesteryear and looking back to the way it was and getting together with all those meet and greets. And you know what? I'm hoping that we'll be able to get back to a lot of that, Brad. So thanks for inspiring that this morning with your post. Tony, happy birthday to you, or happy belated birthday, as it's more properly said, because I believe yesterday was your birthday. But Tony, longtime supporter of what we do here. Big shout out to you and happy belated birthday. James, dude, it's always an honor to see you, to be around you, just to shoot the SHIT with. Real gem of a guy, and got a bite. I can't say enough about that product and the baits that are available through James. And some support would be greatly appreciated from our CFN community. Richard, interesting that you came up so quickly, and let me just quickly go over this. There's some individuals here that I truly want to thank, because there's CFN, there's lots of moving parts, tons of moving parts. So from right to left, Terry Snyder, please go over to Cooking with CFN. The stuff that this gentleman's doing with Outdoor Flavors is incredible. It's tremendous. So please, I invite you to go over to Cooking with CFN. A lot of that stuff is being shared by the one and only Terry Snyder, who I believe is hopefully one day going to be a Red Seal cook. Just kidding, Terry. But nonetheless, everything that he makes looks absolutely delicious. And then you've got the two others that we'll be talking to individually momentarily. So we'll pass on those. But again, I can't thank Jim enough for all he does. Richard Dunlap, who is standing beside Big Jim. Richard is currently right now working on building or at least producing some really interesting swag. And of course, he is right now in the midst of redesigning our jersey because it is much needed. However, I'm sure there's a lot of you, and I'm going to say this, that are growing, one of which will be the gentleman to his left, or his right, sorry, our left, his right, Steve Shaw. Again, can't thank this gentleman enough for all that he does for our CFN community. He's been really busy with all the edits, and basically just keeping our community focused on the community. And through our edits and what we do with that, truly achieves that. So big shout out to those gentlemen. And of course, we couldn't do it without you. This lad, Lloyd, my lord, the amount of sharing that you do, dude, unbelievable, man. You are quite a gem. Dean Howard, run into you at a couple shows. Already volunteered for our next gen events, the two that we have going on this coming summer. Adrian has done some incredible things behind the scenes, building up, bolstering, supporting the tackle community, the Canadian tackle community. And so, Adrian, on behalf of CFN, OFC Nation, we can't thank you enough for all you do. Sonia, what can I say? Sonia, you are an energy that everybody needs in their life. Your passion, you feel your presence. You're an exceptional lady, and we are so glad to have you a part of our community. Stephen, I don't know you well, but I do know that you're here a lot. So again, big shout out to you for all your support. Eve, you always think of us, and as I said, when you went through that awful time, losing some very close family members, we were thinking of you, bud, and a big supporter. You were here nonetheless, and again, that kind of support in tough times, we appreciate, because it goes both ways. Manny, what could be said, bud? The Yeah Babies were heard all over the inlet at the French River at our OFC Nation retreat. So again, thanks for all your passion, dude. MCI, pleasure hooking back up with you at our Made in Canada tackle showcase and marketplace that is going to be announced in the future. There's just so much. My Lord, Tony, Joe's here. Good to see you. Ed McKenzie, what can I say about Ed? Ed, the world is a better place because of the Eds of the world. I'm so blessed, man. There's some incredible. Ryan, dude, we all live vicariously through you. Please send me some more of your YouTube videos. Love the work that you're doing behind the scenes. And as I said, we truly appreciate it, because a lot of us live vicariously through you. And Erica, always a gem to be around. A pleasure to have as a part of our community. Bright light. And anytime you run into Erica, see Erica, talk to Erica, she's always a bundle of energy. So we're truly appreciate to have her. And of course, Richard Elliott. If you don't know this gentleman, it's hard to believe that you're in the fishing community. And I say that with all due respect. Richard is a very busy lad. And if you know anything about the incubator hatcheries that he has available to a lot of the public schools that are going around, the work that's been done, and this is grassroots stuff. This is where the kids get introduced to aquaculture. They get introduced to what a hatchery is, what a fry is, what a smolt is, and then they get to release those fish back into the wild. So, Richard, keep up the great work, man. Truly appreciate all you do. And Jim, big supporter. We saw out in the Ottawa show. I'll give you an example. The Ottawa show. They walked around some older students. Let's say they were looking to maybe branch out, and they weren't sure what they wanted to do. Well, they came to the Ottawa show as basically a means of getting exposed to what the fishing industry, boat industry is all about. And Jim was front and center. All the kids knew who he was. They all knew him by name. And it was just awesome to share that with Jim, seeing all the kids. So again, we have an awesome community, and we are so thankful to have you folks here. We have some interesting things to talk about tonight, and some interesting videos. If you want a recap of what happened at the Bassmaster Classic, stay tuned, because I've put together some great video. And I want to say right now, just so we don't get anybody in trouble, I want to thank the good folks at Bassmaster for sharing some of this footage with us. Of course, Dave Mercer, who is their MC, and I'll tell you, you talk about energy. Holy crap. There's more energy in that guy than I think at a nuclear plant. And I don't know where he gets it from, but God bless him for finding it and sharing it, because he's one of a kind. Sorry. And currently right now, last but not least, I'm on call, and a call just came in. So to Chris Church, who's probably was watching, but not anymore. Thanks for looking after me, dude, for the next 2 hours. Our CFN community truly appreciates it, and that's what teamwork is all about. So, Chris, thanks, buddy. Really appreciate you stepping in. Big shout out to our Ontario contingent. I would say Team Canada, even though they're all from Ontario. They represented us, and we are so proud of how they represented us down at the Bassmaster Kayak Series Classic. They had a classic of their own. It wasn't just the bass anglers, but these folks did a fantastic job, and I want to highlight the Barnews family. What they do for this young lad on the left there, Owen, not to mention everybody in the community, but to go down there and support Owen like they did. There's not a lot of families out there that do that kind of stuff. So I know Owen, he can't thank the Barnews family enough. I'm sure of it, and we're going to have him probably on next week to talk about it. But I'm just so taken back by the dedication that this family has. And as I said, it was a Bassmaster Classic weekend, but there was this event going on, and Steph was so proud to wear OFC Nation to the Classic. This great photo with her dad, Jay, who does some wonderful stuff in our community for fisheries, you name it. And these two bookends who are going to be presenting on the main tank on a regular basis before long. But this family, they're on their way home. I wish them nothing but safe travels. When they finally do get home, we are going to be revisiting with them next week. So I'm looking forward to that because, of course, they're going to highlight and let us know everything that went on with young Owen and Trevor, who was right beside Owen literally the whole tournament. At least that's what it seemed like. Every time we turned around, they were there. I also want to let you know that next week, Kyle Carruthers is going to be on talking about CanCast. I was hoping to get him on tonight, but unfortunately, he's got lots going on, and I'm sure right now his head is just spinning because it's coming up. April 7th is just around the corner. He is currently giving prizes away probably as we speak, but needless to say, buy a ticket, and you get a chance to win some incredible prizes. Just ask Tony Sizanowski, who purchased a ticket and has no intentions of going because it's too far. It's a long drive, what have you. And yes, Tony, I will pick up your prizes because, dude, that man has a horseshoe up his arse. I will pick up all your prizes if you win them. All right, dude? Promise. But Kyle will be on here next week with Moose to talk about everything CanCast, and we're looking forward to that. I also want to bring to your attention, which is brought to your attention every Monday, but it's really important that we do this. Of course, Horwood Lake Lodge. What would be a CFN Live Monday without discussing Camp Mac as well as Horwood? And I'd love to see you folks there. I know we're almost full. I think it's just the one cabin that's left to fill at Horwood. And if you need any kind of incentive at all, we'd love to see you there so you can enjoy some of this. August 11th to the 17th is when the 6th annual CFN retreat is going to be happening up at Horwood Lake Lodge. I'd love for you guys, if you are interested. Again, I'm not 100% sure if that one cabin that sleeps 4 is filled now. There were rumors that it was, so I'll await to hear from Doris and Warren in regards to that. If not, it's $875 for the week plus taxes. And everybody said, ooh, $875. Well, I'm going to tell you, these two, Warren and Doris, have managed to keep this price the same. And I don't know how they've done that. With insurance and everything else going up, they've managed to keep the price the same. And with that, it comes with a place to lay your head. It comes with all the food you could ever want. If you need a boat will be made available. And if it needs fuel, it will also be made available as well as bait. So all of this for $875. And I'm going to tell you, you're going to eat walleye. If you love eating walleye and pike, you're going to eat all you can muster. It is just that great of a place. So please reach out to Warren and Doors and get your butt booked in a bed if, in fact, there are still rooms available. But I need to do this just in case it is not filled. But I'm pretty sure that it is. Then, of course, if you want to join this group this year, in September. In fact, September 27th to the 29th. We would love to have you. It is the place, the destination is Camp McIntosh. Our hosts, Andre and Tracy, are awaiting your calls. As it is right now, the camp is half booked. So there's room. I'm actually really excited that there is room available at Camp Mac because I wasn't expecting there to be much room. So let this be a lesson to you. If you want to be a part of the third annual OFC Nation retreat, we want to have you there at Camp Mac, September 27th to the 29th. It's $205 per person, and it includes place to lay your head, food, a boat if you need it. If you have a boat, you're bringing a boat, it's $155 per person. And as I said, it is a really good time. Some of our OFC Nation community will put that on full display for you right now.
Yeah, baby! McIntosh 2023!
Love to see you there. As I said, September 27th to the 29th is the third annual OFC Nation retreat. Moose, Mike, and all the gang are going to be there. Love to see you there as well. It's going to be a good time. So please reach out to Andre and Tracy and get your butt booked in a bed. In the meantime, we got Big Jim coming up right after a word from our sponsor.
Oh, there's one right there. That's a good one too.
Well, let me bring Jim in here. Big Jim, you there with us?
I'm here, buddy.
I think I can hear you. Seems like yesterday this happened. Seems like just yesterday.
Yeah, that was cool. That's the epitome of my fishing career right there. And that young lad, well, I'll call him a young lad. I think he's 41 now, but call him a young lad. He put the gravy, the sprinkles, the candle on top, the whole deal.
He sure did. And I'll tell you, it couldn't have happened at a better time. Jim, it's a pleasure as always to see you.
Sure.
Look forward to this and all our times together. But what was really special about that was to be able to share it with you and see what, because I know what you mean to our community. It's so impressive and it's humbling to see what you mean to the rest of the fishing community. And there were some big names down there. I mean, Kevin Van Dam, it almost seemed like as soon as he came in the room, he looked for you and
he pointed at me as he was coming to me.
Yeah.
And a lot of people have seen the picture where there's a picture where I'm pointing. And people say, and what it was I saw a face between two shoulders, and it was Cooper. And he went like this to me, pointed at him. Yeah. And somebody took the picture at that time. It was really cool.
You know, we'll there's a lot of videos here, Jim, that we'll share, and we'll try and do our very best to summarize what happened this weekend. And folks, you know, if you don't know, it was the Super Bowl, the Grey Cup, the Stanley Cup of bass fishing this past weekend. They look forward to it every year. It is a year that brings the entire angling community together, whether it's international or domestic. A lot of people show up to this event. There is a massive expo that goes on at the same time, but it brings people together, and it brings people together for the right reasons, because I'll tell you, some of the videos that you're going to see are really well put together. And I want to say, again, I can't thank the folks at Bassmaster enough for some of the footage that we're going to be sharing today. I did put together an update. Jim, you're going to walk us through it, and we'll start with, of course, Gussie's salute from the Classic, and it was humbling, dude. Not that you got mentioned, that's kind of a given, but I was really taken back by this.
Everybody back in Ontario, Big Jim, Scotty. I'm sort of sad that we don't have the big Canada House going on this year, because hopefully one of us is going to win. But if that happens and we're so lucky, we'll party like everybody's here, and we'll represent Canada very well.
Gussie knows how to party.
I'm convinced they all do, Jim. I spent enough time with like the likes of a Coop, Moose, and as I said, I've heard the stories, but I think they all know how to party. They all know how to have a good time. That's for sure.
Yeah, you have to. And people don't realize these the stress on these guys' lives doing this for a living.
Yeah.
All they see is them standing with trophies and big fish and swinging a 6-pounder in a boat and kissing it and saying, yeah, I think it's all. But they don't realize all the business that goes on behind it. They don't realize all the 20-hour drives when their brains are running out their ears, stuff like that. There's a whole other side to it. A whole other side to it.
It is. It's very true. And I will say they did, even though they had some locals that they were really pushing for, you could really feel that they appreciated their international anglers as part of it. And it was amazing to see the number of, familiar faces from Canada involved in the class.
There's a lot of people. And, when you talk about local favorites, I mean, I don't know if you would call that Jason Christie's home lake. I'm not sure. But when he makes a comment that I probably fished here 1,000 days of my life.
Yep.
Wow. It's a lot of it. And I thought it would have been really cool for Gussie to have given the trophy back to Jason if he would have won, because he went away to MLF and then he came back and they had those commercials where he used to say, he'd be standing like this and saying, I got some unfinished business. And then he won an elite tournament. Then he won the Bassmaster Classic. Him and Gussie become buddies. Gussie was telling me that I guess the girls are famous together. Like if him and Jason weren't friends, the girls would still be together all the time.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, it's one of those. But it would have just been really, really cool because he had that. He came back and then he got to give the trophy to his buddy. And it would have been really cool if you were wrong. So I asked Dave Mercer the other night. I was talking to him after the first night, and I said, "Hey, if Gussie wins this again as a repeat offender, if it should happen, who would give him the trophy?"
Great question.
Hey, because he's not the champion. He said the tournament director.
Interesting.
Yeah, they have that. They have it's there. It's a line. It's written the way it's done. Yeah. So
some of the other videos that we'll get to, and we'll start with basically the intro. And the intro is really done well, and it includes Gussie to a T. But you could tell that he's really set a trend on that trail, on that series. That Gussie is not just an elite angler, but he is respected in ways that I think you are. For instance, here in Canada, I see that appeal. They love their Gussie. They can't get enough of their Gussie. And this was the intro. And as I said, Gussie, it's all well deserved, my friend.
Things pulling apart, them announcing your name, your fans, your friends, your family cheering in the stands. It's all meshed into 1 week, and it's something that really will take your breath away.
And it will change your life should you win the Classic. It's important on so many levels. It's so far ahead of anything else. It's unbelievable. As you say, the third time for Grand Lake.
We came into the shot with Jeff Gustafson's jersey hanging on the wall there, our reigning and defending Classic champion, second international angler ever. Gussie really didn't have words for what the Classic meant for him, because it's one of those things that it's a lifelong dream, but it is an adrenaline emotional dump. At that final day, you're still keyed up, high energy. You lose all your energy on that final day, and you kind of just, man, I did it. What else is there to do in fishing? But we know, obviously, there's a goal to go back-to-back. Gussie would love to do that at Grand Lake. He's roommates with the local favorite, Jason Christie. That may help him, may hurt him, who knows. But
Well, I don't necessarily think it helped. And I know Gussie would have loved to have done better than he finished, but
Oh yeah, no doubt about that.
But needless to say, he was a true champion. He conducted himself the whole weekend, got up there, and eventually presented the winner, which we'll get to in a sec. But Jim, when you're in a tournament and you've been in enough of those, and you don't necessarily know you have it in the bag, but you know you're in a good standing. Is it true that final day? Is there just a moment in time where time kind of stops? You don't necessarily care about the next fish. You're enjoying the moment.
I think like I said, I've won close to 100 grand, so not that level, but 100 grand 30 years ago was probably about 300,000 now, probably. But no, it's. When I won that time and they were pretty sure I was going to win, they asked me roughly how much I had. And I told them, roughly, because I hadn't weighed the fish. Because on the last day, I only caught 6 that were, because it was a 6-fish limit at the time. I only caught 6 that I would have kept. I had lots of fish that were, visibly smaller. So I didn't have to weigh them. I only had the 6 and I had weighed them. I had a rough idea, but I wasn't sure because I caught that giant one. And, you're never sure about big fish. And plus, at that time, I hadn't seen too many 6-pound smallmouths in my life. So, these are a new thing. Hey, people don't realize that. Still, a lot of people come to me and say to me, how come they didn't weigh smallmouths 20 years ago in the tournaments, 25 years ago? Well, they were there, but they were all this big. Yeah. Now they're all this big. So what it is. But yeah, no, I sat out there with Mike Dory from Pure Fishing. Who was in charge in Canada at the time. And he was like, we're chatting. He had his boat there. He had a cruiser, and he had it anchored as a check-in boat. And he said to me, I was coming in, I was about 5th from the end. And he kept on saying to me, hang on here, just hang on, and taking people ahead of me. And that's when I started to click, because I had dropped from 3rd back to 8th. And I thought, wow, I know the fishing was, I'm thinking the fishing was really tough today. And then he said to me, yeah, Jim, we're going to send you up last. Tom wants you to go last.
And does it click in at that point? Like, I
can't imagine. Not really, because I only won by 4 ounces.
Oh, wow.
So I knew I was really close. I knew it was really close. But I won that by 4 ounces. I won some others. I won one a 2-day tournament. I won by 12 pounds.
Jeez.
So back then, that meant that, each fish my fish averaged a pound bigger.
Yeah.
You won't see that happen today.
No, but what I'm really amazed at is the motivation for these anglers to get a century belt. Like, this century belt is.
Yeah, that became a big thing once it became possible.
Yeah.
I see it only became possible when they had 4-day tournaments.
Right.
Because realistically, you can't do it in 3 days. I don't even think they had a belt. You had to go to a 4-day tournament for it to happen. Right?
Right.
You might catch 35 pounds of fish one day, and largemouths, I don't know what I think their record's like 42 or something for one day. So, you're almost halfway there the first day. But then the next day they get 11 pounds because they had a whole bunch of fish spawning. They knew where they were. They went and caught them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, or they had one big school of fish that they knew was there, probably offshore somewhere and they went and caught them and that kind of stuff. So it's one of those things. But no, it's I tell you, when you think when you eventually realize that it's about to happen, I've always managed to remain pretty composed. But it's a it's a thrill. I cannot imagine, because when I got to win, I won in front of the biggest crowd. The OPP closed the street in Aurelia because there was so many people just standing in cars, and they estimated 5,000 to 6,000 people standing in park in Aurelia. They went way back across the street on the railway track, so they closed the street off that ran by there, and it was just a sea of people. And it was a pretty big thing. It was a pretty big thing, and it still doesn't. What bass fishing has become since then it's a monster.
It is, and you see it, especially down in the States. And a huge hats off to our American allies and friends who, I'll tell you, when it comes to putting on a sporting event or a concert, they really know how to do it. They really know how to get it done. And as I said, for us to be from Canada and be welcomed into their backyard like they do, and a part of this, the effort that goes into these classics and all their tournaments is really something. Let's talk a little bit about the weather. We didn't necessarily get to see what they had to deal with, but when it comes to bass fishing, Jim, that topsy-turvy weather, what does that do to your psyche? What does that do to your knowledge about bass?
Well, it's like everything else. I think you still have to start off doing what you had planned to do when the weather changes. And then you get a guy like Kevin Van Dam, who's a master of recognizing and reacting. And I did when I won the second classic in Canada, I did a pretty good job of that. I don't mind tooting my horn a little bit, because I left what I was doing and went to fish for smallmouth. I went to fish for smallmouth, and I caught those two big ones. First cast, the spot, I knew there was some there, but they were a little bit of a ride. Had to go through the speed zone, whatever. And then it was about, I forget, it was about a 20-minute ride. And Sunday afternoon, waves every direction once you go through the narrows at Atherley there. And I went out to that spot, and the first cast I threw in, I catch a fish that's almost 6 pounds. So it's the biggest smallmouth I'd seen in a couple of years.
Wow.
And I get that in the boat, and I throw right back in, and I get a 3.5 pounder. And, that's, I know I had to limit that. I didn't know I was going to win. I didn't know I was going to win, but because all the largemouths I had were pretty small. But yeah, no, it's one of those things you have to make your decisions, because I started off in the morning. It was beautiful, sunny, and then it sort of cooled off in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
It was still sunny and nice, but it was, when the cold front comes in, but it comes later the next day when it really changes, because the weather was pretty consistent for that, but it changed on the last day. But it didn't change visually. It changed that the temperature dropped a little bit. You felt it in the afternoon, and then a little bit of a breeze started getting up. But it was still beautiful. But I mean, I've been at tournaments where you practiced all week and in a pouring rain, and Saturday morning, 7:00, it's getting hot and it's bright sunshine. So everything, you think you're going to go catch them off a flat on a spinnerbait, and you make 2 passes on the flat and you catch a piker, you get bit off. You say, what am I going to do? I know they're here. They didn't leave. And that's when you have to change what you're doing. You have to fish slower. You have to be more methodical. You have to fish every square inch, which is something I always had the guts to do. I didn't mind, spending time. And Rocky and I were both like that. If we knew it was fish there, we didn't mind taking the time to try to catch them. It was something that we, because they don't.
And I love that, because at the end of the day, it gives it that rawness, that it's authentic. It's authentic when you speak of it like that, Jim. And
but a lot of these reservoirs they've got down there too, they deal with these rainstorms.
Yes.
Like you heard Jason, I believe he talked last week with us about how it can rain at 6:00 at night, and the next morning it's murky, and then by 2:00 it's cleared up again in some of the areas. because the water flushes through. Something they have to deal with, not just the weather, but they have to deal with the hydro dams, because all these dams they've built on all these lakes, all the reservoirs are for hydro, and all of a sudden they start running water, and then they're not. You saw in the FLW tournament, there was one of the guys that almost won. I watched a little bits of it here, tying jigs in the office, and I'm watching him, and he's hanging out at the dam waiting for them to start generating more power. So the fish, it would move the current, and it would put the current right back on top of where he thought the fish were and where they were going to feed along a seam of rock. And when the current got right to the edge of the rock, the fish were in their favorite spot to be. Plus, you got the current. You always hear me talk about, if you got a boulder, it's great. If you add a bunch of rock and sand beside the boulder just got better. If you add a little sprig of wheat growing beside it and maybe a branch, it just got better. But when you add current, it makes it's like
it's like turning on a switch.
It's the ultimate switch is current, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things that these guys are masters at that. There's a lot of young guys out there. It was cool to see some different, a lot of different names. There was a few of the guys there that I went and looked up. I had no idea who they were. No idea who they were. And a lot of them, I'm kind of thinking maybe there was some of them that it could have been their first classic. I'm pretty sure.
Well, what I was amazed at, you're right. What I was amazed at was the number of rookies. To your point, the number of rookies that were participating this year was remarkable, and some of them did really well. Like that, is it Trey Williams? I believe is his name. Holy
there's a few of them there. Yeah,
man, alive, they did really, really well. And I truly love Mark Zona's take on all of the days, and so I made sure I included it in our broadcast. But so day one, they've dealt with what seemed to be a warm start to the day, and then of course the cold front goes through, and things don't exactly stack up the way they should have, or at least how they predicted. Have a listen.
Way here, the 54th edition of the World Championship, the Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic, presented by Jockey Outdoors. And for the third time, this tournament is being contested on the Grand Lake of the Cherokees, about 60 miles long, 46,000 acres here. Take off early this morning at Wolf Creek Park. Those 56 anglers who have qualified, looking to have their life change. One of them's life will change when 3 days of fishing are over, but this was just day number one. They say you can't win the Classic on this day, but you can lose it. I don't know how true that is, but we will examine what we have seen today on this.
Look, it was very, very warm in the morning. You're looking at 50 to 52 degrees, but like Davey said right there, that lack of wind had something off, because a lot of the anglers that we had on camera, guys like Greg Hackney, they thought they would come out of the gates firing. And really, we probably, as you said, we had more fish catches early today, but a lot of smaller fish. The one thing to be said, going into day two, is going to be a lot of diversity with your leaders on how they caught them on day number one.
I think it was really important that he said that, and it seemed as if every time we'd go fast forward and we'd start to see Coop sort of generate some numbers and what have you. He was following exactly what Mark was saying. Warm. A lot of folks caught some really big fish early, and then it sort of dwindled off. And those who were expected to do really well, it didn't really necessarily pan out that way.
Yeah, you see that happen a lot. It's just like you talk to some of the guys, and the only time that I made a comment to a guy when I won my second Classic, a guy called Greg Roth. I don't know whether you know him or not. I
know the name.
Yeah, I bumped into him at the boat launch, and he goes, "Jimmy, how did you do? You know?" And I looked at him and I said, "I think I'm going to win." And he spun around in the boat. We were waiting to go on the trailers, and he spun around and looked at me and he said, "I don't think I've ever heard anybody say that, really." And I sort of had a big, manure-eating grin on my face, And if you think of last year when Gussie came in and we were all there, he was looking pretty happy, wasn't he?
Dude, and I don't even know if he acknowledges it or if he knew it himself, but
No, I think I think it just oozes out of you. Your confidence just peaks. Your confidence just peaked, and he saw the fish on the sonar. The area where I caught the majority of my big fish, especially the first day and 20 minutes in the morning on a crankbait. I caught one fish and it had 8 or 10 with it that were all bigger, following it.
Yeah.
And they're in this little corner in the weeds. And I just went back there. I caught one about 3.5 pounds on the first cast. So right away, your confidence goes like this, eh? That type of stuff out there. But that guy Zona too. A lot of people don't realize too that what these guys have researchers behind them that are trying to correlate and look back what happened here before when the weather was like this, stuff like that constantly. And that's why you hear them coming up. They're always passing papers back and forth, going off to someone else on a TV screen talking about something. They're getting bits of information, boom, 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 from the past, and we can thank computers for that, because it isn't somebody with a handful of papers looking back. You know what I mean? They just click it in, and it pops up and tells them. And that's a lot of guys are using a lot of records like that now to fish, for ideas in their minds.
And you talk about the confidence, as I said, it's something that we noticed, or I picked up on right away when he walked in. Cooper is an open book. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and you knew last year he was panicking because his practice didn't go all that well, and he was having trouble finding good fish, decent fish. So you knew that he was a little concerned, and I know guys get on him about that. And
but not having, I know, guy, when you go out and you're an angler that's capable of catching fish in one of these tournaments and doing well, if you go out and you practice for 3 days and they're all crappy, then something's coming.
Yeah.
Like they can't hold a good dog down, and all the people involved at that level are all good dogs. You may never have heard their names, but boom. I mean, like when I went in tournament fishing, the first year I ever fished, nobody knew who I was. And I won everything, the Canadian Championship, the whole thing. And then I did it again, 2 years later. So it's there's a lot of people that are like that out there, just because you're a new name. And mind you, I was there right in the beginning.
Yeah.
And but still, they had been having lots of tournaments around, but it was the first time they had really big stuff. And it's you can't hold a person who knows how to fish down. If they go fishing 2 or 3 days in a row and they say that practice is terrible, well, you want to watch them, because you're not going to hold them down. You know what I mean?
That's so cool.
It's going to happen. Yep.
So cool of you to say, and it's true. It makes 100% sense. One thing that was discussed on the weekend, and I will have to say, and I wish I had recorded it, but Dave Mercer's take on forward-facing sonar. Of course, we can't talk about fishing without discussing, especially bass tournaments. Can't seem to talk about them without mentioning forward-facing. And Dave, he nailed it. Like, he absolutely nailed it. He says,
I was out of the loop on the weekend. I was crazy busy Friday, and then Saturday I was gone all day to Cornwall to tight lines. I left here at like 5:30 in the morning. White knuckled it to Cornwall. There was this much slush on the 401. It was stupid, and I got home Saturday night, and then we had guests and people, and it was just like, so I probably know less about what happened at this classic than anything in the last 20 years.
Well, just to fill you in, I don't know exactly what Quinter is talking about in terms of Hank Parker's take. I missed that part, but I believe, knowing Hank, that he's a firm believer that knowledge sometimes will prevail over technology. But what Mercer said, I thought, was so spot on. He's like, listen, guys, a lot of these bass anglers fish with frogs. They fish in water that's, this deep. Forward-facing sonar doesn't work in that kind of concept. So, we talk so much about it. I think we put too much focus on it. It certainly helped with those like Hamner, who decided to get out of the creeks and go into the deeper water. But for a good majority of the anglers that participated in the Classic, I don't think forward-facing sonar even had anything to do with their success or demise.
So a lot of it wasn't like, I mean, if it's a smallmouth tournament and a lot of them are becoming smallmouth tournaments, even in waters that were not traditionally smallmouth waters,
Mhm.
because those smallmouths are out there, you can catch them.
Yeah.
You're going to see more of it as the smallmouth blossom, and there's going to be more smallmouth. They're not done in whatever is causing all this to happen. It's food. Bruce Tufts is big on that 3/4 of a degree water change in the last 20 years or whatever it is. Just a longer season, everything. They're more successful. Like they're out there growing, but it's not like you said, it's not all open water. When like a lot of these big fish they're catching, you see them when they're in Florida. I mean, they're fishing in bulrushes and little, murky little canals and stuff like that. Forward fishing sonar isn't going to help them there. And even if people say, oh, he won because he had forward facing sonar. Well, no, he won because he caught the most fish. Everybody there can have a forward-facing sonar. There's not one of those guys there last week. If he needed a forward-facing sonar, it wasn't on the boat. Whether he paid for it, got it in a sponsorship, whatever. You can't be, dead, broken down, poor to be going to the Bassmaster Classic.
Yep.
You've got to have some sponsors. You've got to have some financial resources. And unless you're a nut with your money and you blow it all, that's something, But,
well, not this host of nuts, I'll tell you. It might be a different jar of nuts, but needless to say, yeah, we keep our things in check. I do want to go over and listen to the podcast because Quinn said it was spot on, truly resonated even to a techie guy like himself. But Quinn did say, and I have to ask, do you feel, Jim, that knowledge will always outweigh technology, or do you think that there's going to be a time when technology is going to?
I think we're there.
Interesting.
I think we're there. Yeah, I think we're there. You have to have the knowledge to go with it, but technology is not just depth finders. If you mean just depth finders, like you hear me rant about this all the time, about electric trolling motors, about boats, temperature. I had someone talk to me about that. He said, "I never heard you mention temperature." I said, "Geez, that was not a big thing to me. It's more of a thing in the U.S. because of when they fish for spawning fish and reservoirs. The fish are more cut and dried, I think, according to temperature than they are up here. From what I've seen, from what I've experienced it, but." Hank was around a long time ago too, and I don't. I just saw Ed said there, so he wants it. Yeah, no, you can't limit it. I don't think you can do that. You can't. It's there. Well, the industry wouldn't stand for it.
No, that's the other thing that we don't talk about is.
Could you imagine? Yeah, could you imagine BSS comes out and says, "Okay, well, we're not going to allow forward-facing sonar next year." All of a sudden, Garmin, Humminbird, Lowrance, anybody else.
Pull their sponsorship. Yep. No, 100%.
And not even just the sponsorship. They wouldn't support anglers because if you can't talk about something that you've taken the time to develop, it's it doesn't. It's a
Sparkus, I appreciated this because I did see that Rick Clun is a supporter of forward facing sonar, and at his age, everyone else should think about getting on the train. Well. Yeah, if you can afford it, my friend, as I said, I do believe that it's a good idea to limit it to a certain degree. I think just for the sake of what it represents and what it looks like, having all these graphs on a boat, I don't know. Again, it's more of a grassroots thing for me. I understand the technology. I understand its importance to the angling community and the industry. So would I want to banish it? No, but I do believe that it should be limited. It should be limited.
It's just like they tried to, like in the beginning. Okay, in BSS, you used to have to go. I think you were allowed 5 rods and a tackle box with 10 pounds of stuff, and they weighed it. You had to show up with your stuff. They weighed it. And if you had more, you had to take something out. You weren't allowed to use a rod over 8 feet long. And so many other things. We talked about this before. Minnesota banned paper graphs. You weren't allowed to have a paper graph on your boat. That didn't last for long.
Yeah.
But, like they said, it was going to end the fish. There would be no more fish in the lakes. Like, We all know that. I knew a lot of guys that trolled for lake trout with X16 graphs, went through 10 rolls of paper in a day, never put a fish in a boat. So, it's about what I said earlier about you have to have the knowledge to go, you have to know how to use everything at your disposal. It's like, just like, it's no different than a really good carpenter or a mechanic. We've all been somewhere and seen someone's tools in the garage and go, what the hell is that for?
Yeah.
But then the person who knows how to use that tool, oh, well, it's for such and such and such and such. Remember the first time I ever saw, it was a long time ago now, but the first time I ever saw a torque wrench. What the hell is that?
Anyway, that is such a great way to explain it. And Richard Elliott was kind enough to put up the YouTube link for Hank Parker's take on forward facing sonar. So I appreciate that, Richard, for that. But needless to say, Ed McKenzie, this kind of nails it. Like, some of the
there's a golf balls and golf clubs.
Yeah,
it's like everything else. And I was driving the other day and I was coming home from Tight Lines in Cornwall from their grand reopening at the new store. I was talking to a buddy of mine on the phone, and I said to him, remember when we were kids and you'd drive on the 401 the odd time with your parents, and there'd be a car broken down every 2 miles?
Yeah.
Well, you don't see cars broken down every 2 miles now.
No, unless you're in Brampton. They're usually upside down. Sorry.
Oh, hey. At Brockville on Saturday morning, the transport trucks with the two of them together, they pull the extra, the piggyback or whatever they call it, the big, they have the extra box. Upside down up against the cement rail with about 5 cars trapped, and there had to be like 6-8 firemen, poor buggers standing up on the wall, was just cars driving by on the side that wasn't affected, splashing them with slush. I got the 4-ways on, I go by doing about 30 and stay as far away from them as I can, guys just blowing through little cars, and the cars are just going like this on the slush. Like, oh my God. And then I drive home to dry pavement.
As I said, I don't want this to turn into whose story's better, but I will say
no tires.
I know, but
tires, how good the tires are now compared to the. But I love Ed's the golf balls.
It's perfect. It's absolutely great argument. But yeah, needless to say, I was not looking forward to driving home on Friday of last week, because just the littlest bit of snow. I don't know. People think it's still sunny and 17, and they just don't get it.
I watched the news just before I came back here with Tammy. We ate dinner together, and they were just saying, like in Ottawa this week, the highs are going to be 5, which is seasonal.
Mm-hmm.
Plus 5. It was 15 here today. When I went to the gym this morning, there was this much snow here. It's all gone. It went up to 14, 15 this afternoon, just briefly. So, but
I love Jay mentioned this too about Gussie said on Mercer's podcast last week that it's living. There needs to be less crybabies. I do remember hearing that.
Jeff said that?
I don't know who's. I think it may have been Mercer that said it. But,
okay.
This is the job. Better learn it. He has no plan B. And really, at the end of the day, now that it's reared its head, you can't pull it away. But there are limits, and hopefully we figure out what those.
Well, I remember when they started with graphite rods.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't need a graphite rod to catch a fish. I had a guy one day. I was on what lake? Oh, on Rice Lake, and I had a couple of buoys out. The buoys you used to throw to mark a spot in the middle of the lake. You're 500 yards offshore. I don't care if your last name is Van Dam or not. When you're 500 yards offshore, you can't stay on a spot the size of this room. Mm-hmm. You can get off it real easy in a weed bed. I mean, if it's one big giant boulder, okay. You got the boulder, but you still, when you get away from it before GPS, you can. I've had to look for buoys for a couple of minutes sometimes. And Rocky and I used to use a lot of. And this guy comes along in a boat, and he picks up my marker, and he starts winding the rope around it, the cord. And I looked at him and I go, "Whoa, buddy, that's mine there. Can you put that back in the water?" You don't need no goddamn thing to fish with. And he starts and just lays a blast on me, eh? And I went over to his boat with the electric motor, and I said to him, put it back in the water, okay? I said, that's not yours. You're stealing. Okay. He said, I'm taking that back and throw it in the garbage in the boat launch. I said, well, I tell you what, I'm going to follow you back to the boat launch, and I'm going to phone the police when I get there. I said, you know the phone booth beside the garbage can? And he looks at me, and you can see he realized, I said, I might even just go ahead of you. If you look at the boat, I'll be there a few minutes before you. And phone him, man. He looks at me and he goes, yeah. He throws it back out of the boat. But, there's a guy like thought you didn't, over a string with a marker buoy on the end.
It takes all kinds, Jim. It takes all kinds. Now,
he's an old guy like me now. I'll be climbing in the boats next year here, pulling the forward-facing units off the boat and throwing it.
Yeah, 100%. Oh, that's too
funny.
God. Getting back to the classic, this is the intro to day number 2. They do a great job of recapping day 1. And Mark Zona offers his insight on what day 2 should be and how it will end up. And it's interesting because the parallels between what he says and what Cooper does is bang on.
Bass Pro Shops Bassmaster Classic presented by Jockey Outdoors. The Sooner State of Oklahoma and the Green Country, they call it, around Tulsa, our host city. And just north and to the east, the Grand Lake, the Cherokees, the site of 2 former classics in 2013 and 2016. Take off this morning from Wolf Creek Park in the second of 3 days of competition. Very important, the second day, as always. No matter what you did on day number 1, you got to make sure that you land in the top 25 at the end of day number 2. Davey, Height, Mark Zona.
I think the real story of day number 2 in this tournament so far has been the weather. Yesterday morning, you're looking at 50 to 53 degrees. This morning, it was cold. It was in the high 30s, but there was a presence of wind. So you knew it was going to help some of your anglers in the top 10 and potentially hurt some where maybe you could see some guys lower than 10th place start to rise up. And we got to see exactly that today.
He's bang on because as if you were watching it and you were following it like some of us were, and that's the one thing I will think about on call is you do get a little bit of arse time so you can get to sit down and watch and follow some of this. But this is exactly what happened to Cooper. And I will say at the weigh-in, I was stunned, but this is when you start to believe. This is when I mean, my support has always been there for that kid and will always be there for that kid. But this is when you really start to get excited for him because when you see the movement that he makes after day 2, holy smokes, it gets the heart pumping.
19 pounds, 5 ounces with 33 pounds, 3 ounces. Cooper Gallant jumps all the way inside our top 5 in 4th place currently. Give me a whoop for Coop.
Stoked about that. Championship Sunday tomorrow. Hopefully we can come in with 5 giants. It's possible that happened last time we were here and big bags were brought in on the final day. You never know out here. There's giants that live out here, but man, I'm thankful. It's been an awesome week. I love Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank all you guys for coming out. All my Canadian friends, love you guys so much. All my friends, family, sponsors means the world, and that's all I got. I'm going home. I'm eating dinner. I'm going to bed early tonight and getting up tomorrow, and hopefully we can figure something out.
5 fish away from a Bassmaster Classic title.
It's awesome to see, man. I'll tell you. And there's a host of characters. He's standing in front of, what do you figure, like 60, 70,000 people, Jim, or more?
25, eh?
Was it 25,000?
But I'm not sure. It's an arena. Jason would probably.
Yeah,
know.
you're right. Yeah, now that I come to think of it, it is an arena. So, yeah, it's probably around the 20.
Yeah, it's not one of the outdoor ones.
The point I'm getting at is the way he conducts himself. You know, this is.
Well, he's not new to it now. He's done it a few years, eh?
Exactly.
Excuse me. Yeah, no, I thought it was really cool. And he's standing there and you can see Gagnon Sports on his shirt.
Well, Sean Quinn had mentioned that he was wearing Gussie's pants. Were you aware of that?
No.
That's I forget.
I
Yeah.
didn't know Gussie's pants.
Did anybody notice that he was wearing?
Oh, the same colored pants.
Maybe it was that. I don't know.
Yeah, there's a few pictures of them. They've got those sort of tan colored pants on. Yeah.
Did anybody notice Cooper was wearing Gussie's pants? I'm sure there's a story there. Oh yeah, Sean says same color pants. Now, Sean also mentioned about the kayak anglers, and big congratulations to Chris for the biggest bag of the kayak classic. We're gonna have Barnews on next week. We're gonna talk all about what happened at that event. But Sean, thanks for mentioning that. Big shout out to Chris for what was an incredible showing at that tournament. So here it is, Jim. There's not much at this point that you can do except just go out and compete. Basically, put your foot down, get focused. If you need a big bag, look for a big bag. If you need quantity as opposed to quality,
these guys are looking for a big bag every day, Scott. Here, if it's a regular one of the tournaments during the year, maybe if they're broke, financially hurting, they fish a little more conservatively. If they're up there and have a good chance, just to be sure they stay in the money. But there's nothing like when that tournament's over, it's under the bridge. There's no benefit to them. So they're fishing they're doing what they think is going to catch, not that I wouldn't do it every day, but I know there's a couple of days when I fished where I purposely went and did things that I knew early would just get me fish. So I was going to have points or possibly stay in the money. But when it was in a classic, a championship, that's why, like I told you, the last day going out into Simcoe, and this was before you went to Simcoe because you couldn't win there. You had to have largemouths. And then I decided to do that. That's taking chances. And at that, these guys do this. There's no day 4.
Mm-hmm.
It's 3 days. There's nothing else. Either you get the trophy or you get yourself a really good check. And they're fishing. They're doing everything they know how to do just to catch anything that would be big fish. I'm sure on the morning when that tournament started on the first day, there was somebody somewhere, maybe even more than one person, that continued to practice because they had nothing. They had nothing to go to. So it's better to keep looking for something than go and say, well, yeah, I've got 6 pounds of game today. Because it means it does you no good. And you got to keep practicing.
Wild. Alicia, something I learned this weekend. Thanks for mentioning this. There's no points at the classics. Yep. So it's go big or go home. As Sparkus has said, you're looking for 15 huge, massive bites. So yeah, it's amazing. But this event starts with 56 boats. Is it typically that many, Jim, or sometimes?
I think it can vary a little bit. I'm not sure. There can be a couple. I don't know what they do about. I'm not up on it anymore, Scotty. I don't know what they do with tie stuff like that. I know it used to be 42, 41. It used to be 40, and then last year's champion would make it 41. And over the years, then they started adding people from the grassroots, from the Bass Nation and stuff like that, and other things through, which I think is excellent. It's really good. It's really, really good that they do that. And I think it was 56 they had this year they started with.
56. Yeah, 56.
Yeah, 56 or 57. I wasn't sure. Yeah.
Needless to say, it is a smaller group. These folks are the big sticks on the Elite Series, and I'm not taking anything away from anybody else. But these folks have done it. They've earned the points to get to the Classic. They've won certain tournaments in order to get their positions at this Classic. So this is truly an accomplishment in itself just to arrive at this tournament. But to do well, holy smokes, is one step better. So here we are. Cooper currently at this stage right now is in 6th place. So he's in the Elite 6 from what I remember Championship Sunday starting at.
Yeah, they call it at the weigh-in, the final 6, yeah.
Final 6. And for him just to be at that level is what an accomplishment. So proud. But the Johnsons were also doing well. Gussie was starting to fade after day 2. He was eliminated and was more than happy to be a fan. Knew, obviously, he still had a job to do because he had to hand the trophy to someone at the conclusion. But needless to say, was a huge fan, participated like the rest of us would. And I think, again, that just shows to Gussie's character. So here it is. Set the stage. It is Championship Sunday. Some great promos at the beginning. You're going to love some of the nostalgic video that was shared, Jim. So sit back and enjoy.
You're watching a Fox Sports presentation of BASS.
You are a bass fisherman that has fished any kind of tournament ever. This is the tournament that you've dreamed about, the Bassmaster Classic. 2024 edition. Someone's life will change for the better today. They will go home $300,000 richer. They will have a trophy that will never fade away. That's the thing that people want more than the money sometimes, is the memories and the trophy that says, I did it.
Lined up in the morning mist, awaiting the starting gun, are the world's best bass fishermen. Baseball, football, tennis, and golf were designed originally for pure enjoyment. So was angling. Now angling too has its profession. Star fishermen who are highly honored and financially rewarded. The Bassmasters Classic is to bass fishing what the World Series is to baseball. It's a competition among America's best anglers who have qualified in earlier tournaments for America's favorite game fish, the largemouth bass.
More than half a century ago, it was the most important day in the sport of bass fishing. Today, it still is. The competition has been fierce among the best in the business, and 25 anglers have fought their way through to make it to the championship round. Now the challenge, 8 hours to prove that you can outfish them all and realize the ultimate dream of every tournament angler, to take the title of new world champion.
It has been a great week here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Thank you for joining us this morning on the Bassmaster Classic pre-show, brought to you by Tennessee Tourism. That was a great state that we were in last year for the World Championship of Bass Fishing, the Bassmaster Classic. This year, Oklahoma has shown out, no doubt about it. Ronnie Moore here with Mike Sukon and Such. Everything's shown up. The fish have shown up. The crowds have shown up. And boy, the weather has kept us on our toes. The first day was beautiful. The second day was a little windier and a lot colder.
A lot colder.
And today in Oklahoma, it is going to be
There it is. The stage is set. The anglers are blasting off, Jim, and what happens after that is history in the making. And, you know, as I said, it was an honor to be a part of your celebration into the Hall of Fame, but to see Gussie win last year was the epitome. But now you've got all these anglers, these 10 anglers that are going out and they're busting their hump to try and win this illustrious trophy. You know, obviously bragging rights among the Elite Series anglers. But what goes through your head in a situation like this? You're at the boat launch, you're waiting to blast off. Is it all nerves at this point, or you got this figured out?
It wasn't for me. We just, as you saw the guys, they sit around. You know, we would talk, whatever else. It was always the same 2 or 3 boats. You'd see 4 boats tied together, you know, drifting somewhere, and one person with the electric down can pull in the 4 boats a little bit, you know, or keep you away from the shore. I think for the most part, it was. You were excited inside, but you were just all there you were all there for the same reason. And I think it's so different for the people, especially these guys here. A lot of them, they're doing it for a living. And that is the difference than a guy that goes in and works downtown in Toronto as a stockbroker all week, or, you know, a bricklayer, or, you know, a gas guy, like whatever you did, you know. And you go fish on the weekend. But when you're trying to make it, when it's how you're feeding your family, you know, making your way in the world, I think it's a different thing. And at the level these guys are at, the financial commitment, the commitment being away from their families, so much. You know, I hear guys and they talk to me about their bicker with their wives over being gone 4 or 5 weekends a summer, and I thought, oh my God, you don't ever want to be, you know, they want to be professional fishermen. They think they're going to go to the States, and you know, and that's where the dream comes from. You know, that's where the dream comes from. because there's a point when Cooper did that. I mean, I remember him. Remember, I found that picture a while ago of him wanting to cut lawns for $2 or something, whatever it was, like 7 years ago. The little bugger. Yeah, he just it's that kind of a thing. But if you got the dream, it's there, and I'll guarantee you that there wasn't one of those guys on the first morning didn't think he was going to win. And if it wasn't, they should have went. If they had a thing they could beam in, put over your head, and check you, and then they should have just taken you and get out of here. If you didn't think you're going to win, you have to be that way.
Listen, it's almost like we rehearsed this, because everything you just said is brought up by the eventual winner. And I'm going to share that video, not in its entirety. I have edited quite a bit, but I just want to share with folks the emotion of what Jim just shared with us and everything that leads up to that, the people that are involved, those you need to thank, those you need to recognize. It is a team effort, and we'll get to the champion in a minute, but I just want to big shout out, congratulations to Corey Johnson, who managed to place 6, and that is a heck of an accomplishment. Corey was there all weekend, it seemed, Jim. He just wouldn't quit, and on the final day when it counted, he really moved up the ladder, and to finish 6, really from where he was, it was quite an accomplishment. And
he's a ball of testosterone, that boy too. Boy, he's like that, and he would never. The idea for him to quit, not a chance.
No,
never, ever.
As I said, this next video, if you are an emotional person, you might want to grab some tissues, because Justin goes into great detail of who he needs to thank, who he needs to recognize.
I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, because it is really emotional, and you get it's his heart is on his sleeve, and I love this. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who's the best angler, who caught the biggest bass. We're all human beings, and the epitome of a moment like this, it captures the best of you, and sometimes it gets the best of you. And to Justin Hamner, congratulations, not only on your achievement, on being a wondrous, wholesome human being. Have a listen to this.
I'm Justin Hamner. I just won the 2024 Bassmaster Classic.
I'm Justin Hamner. I just won the 2024 Bassmaster Classic.
I love it.
It's freaking amazing. It's amazing.
I can't imagine how hard this
is. What it's all about.
I can't imagine.
We did it.
How many years?
I lost count of the years trying to chase this dream. Just the things that had to happen, the people that helped me along the way, it's unreal. Folks that didn't want anything, not even sponsored, just guys at the boat ramp back home just come up and hand me $50 and try to help out with gas. It's pretty special. The stuff I've put them through, being gone away from them has always been the hardest part. No doubt about it. And if I had to worry about everything back home when I was gone, I couldn't do it. I mean, my wife, this is no doubt it's just as much hers as it is mine. I mean, I couldn't have done it without her. She's the one that pushed me to chase after my dream. She knew how much I cared about it. She's never been nothing but supportive of it. Gosh, I'm glad we did it for her.
A father's pride in his son. I saw it in his eyes. Walking down the steps, getting on the stage and holding the trophy when you pass it to him.
I give him credit, Jim, because I couldn't get through this. There's no way in hell I could do this.
No doubt. He's the one that started all this. Dragging a stupid Carolina rig on Lake Tuscaloosa.
That's so awesome.
Catching 12-inch spotted bass. Now I won the Bassmaster Classic.
Doesn't get any sweeter than that.
Wow, that silenced me. Silenced me. I was looking at that like that's pretty cool. And you know what he said about the Bassmaster Classic, I'll guarantee you when he said it was about getting to it, not even winning it. I'll guarantee you.
I believe it. As I said, I don't know anything about that man. I don't know anything about him, but I'll tell you, I love the boy. I would love nothing more than just to give him a big hug and say, dude, that was exceptional. You know, it was probably the toughest thing he had to do. I would say probably easy. It was easier to fish and win the cup than it was to go through that interview. But dude, what a human being.
Well, you know, you've heard me tell the story about the credit card.
Yeah.
You know, if that Visa card wouldn't have come in the mail that day, I probably wouldn't be in the fishing business.
100%.
It's that simple. And when I went inside and I showed it to Tammy, she said, well, I guess you know where you're going this weekend.
That's such
and here we are with three kids, didn't have a pot to pee in, had nothing. You know, and here you are running around. People think you're a millionaire, and I'm driving. You know, I'm driving up to Midland. I got tears running down my face.
Yeah,
because I'm thinking to myself, wow, should I be doing this? Should I be spending this money? I might need the credit card. You know, that kind of stuff. It's there was a few times there, and I told you with Rocky and I, we had some tight times. I remember standing in Trombley's parking lot in Aurelia with him, and we were figuring out on it with a piece of paper, and we're not mathematicians, who needed to check more. I still remember I got it because I was 2 months behind in a rent. Wow. You know, stuff like that, and we managed to keep going. And I know the day that I drove home after winning that, Tammy came up on the second day or something. Like she took the bus up, and I drove right. You know, when you come down through Barrie and you make the left there, go up the big hill through Manila and that, and go over to Peterborough, Lindsay.
Mm-hmm.
I drove straight through there. I ended up lost. I had no idea. I'd never been down that road. I always turned. We didn't have GPS or nothing. I just knew where the lakes were. I had found them once, and I always had a good memory for getting back. But yeah, no, it was man. Some of the days that I put in, and like I said to you, I very seldom saw anybody launch a boat in the morning because I was already out.
Mm-hmm.
I used to come back to the parking lot and say, geez, did nobody practice today? But the launch ramp would be soaking wet because they were all gone.
Interesting.
And I'd be coming in. So it's you know.
Well, I think Keith Duster sums it up the best. It's not about the money. It's about what the trophy means. And I have to say, seeing it firsthand, Keith, being down there, I can't imagine what it's like to drink from a Stanley Cup or a Grey Cup or
I drank from a Stanley Cup.
But because of that man right there, I will have this keepsake for the rest of my life.
Oh, you still got? That's funny. I went to get this because I was going to say, hey, how did you get that cup? Was that in my bag?
But Jim, you show your trophy. Yeah,
that had no money with it, and it's the greatest trophy I've ever had. So it's true what Keith just said about the money. You know, like the money's it's secondary, and it was really secondary the first time I won a real pile of money. Like when you win $85,000, you know, like 30 years ago, that's a chunk of coin.
Yeah,
and then it propels you. I could probably say, you know, almost every nickel I've earned was because of that. It's the thing that really pushed you to that. But when I was watching him talking there, good thing you didn't have me on a big picture.
Yeah, no, dude.
I was a little choked up there.
It was tough to put it together. I'm not gonna lie. Listening to him talk about his dad and everything.
Yeah, I thought about my mother when I won that.
Yeah.
Because she always used to push me. She could never figure. I don't think she ever really figured out what I was trying to do. I don't think she ever figured it out. And then she was always so proud. Like when my mom passed, I found there was a. Oh geez, I had it here a while ago. There was those things, those legal things that you get. They're an envelope that folds and they had a string on it that wraps around the little circle to keep it shut.
Legal note. Yeah.
I took that out, and that was where all the pictures were of my dad from when he was in special forces and things like that. And
wow,
whatever else she had pictures of him in there, and she had all kinds of things. And then she had every clipping from the Ottawa Citizen where they had ever put me in the sports pages holding up a big muskie or something like that. It was really, really cool. She had all that stuff in there, and it was just she was proud of me, but. When she saw the fish, she knew that she didn't realize just trying to make a living in the fishing business. And then when the tournament thing came along, and I realized that I could compete at that, like it was like because we've talked so many times, Scotty, over the years. I was a walleye fisherman. Then I found out you could get your picture in the paper if you caught muskies. So I took that up, and then somebody told me you could win trucks and cars and boats if you caught bass. So I said, "Oh, let's go do that." You can't script that.
No, you can't.
I'm blessed for every second of it. I find I'm touched by that, what I just watched. That's gonna be I'm probably gonna watch a movie with Tammy or something here because I gotta be at the gym at 6:30. It's one of those things like it'll be in my mind. It's gonna all come back to me watching that. Because he was really emotional.
Dude,
young. He's young too. How old is he?
I think he's 24, 25, something like that.
Not that old, eh?
Not that old.
He could have a lot more. It's a lot of guys win the Classic. You hardly ever hear from them again. A lot of them, they win it again, and then they become Rick Clunn, and they win it again, and win it again, and become Kevin Van Dam, and it just
they can't get rid of you.
Is he here again?
Jim, I will say this: I pale in comparison to any of the individuals that we've spoken about and highlighted here on the show. But I will keep this forever. This is a keepsake of mine, and to the illustrious Dave Mercer being a guest, I will always be honored to be your guest.
I got mine right there.
I don't know that I'll ever be back in that capacity at the Bassmaster Classic, but I will say this: it was a fun ride. And because of that, we spent the amount of time that we did tonight, Jim. And again, I can't thank you enough for all your time, all your support, and everything you do for our angling community, and especially here every Monday, bud.
I'm when I messaged you earlier and said, could you do without me? Today was a shit day to be Big Jim, an absolute shit day. Everything, I'm beaming right now. I'm happy I did. Yep.
That's awesome, buddy. You take care. And you know what? We got Lawrence, who's been very patient backstage. He's going to be coming up next, right after a word from our sponsor. Take care.
Hey, before we go,
yeah,
I'll be at Gagnon's on the Friday and Saturday tying jigs, and then I'll head up to Cancast for the Sunday. So
beautiful.
Everybody that wants to come out and say hello, I'll be there.
Can't wait to see you, Jimmy. You take
care. Stay safe, everybody.
Peace. Lawrence, right after this.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
I have to say, Lawrence, thanks so much for being so patient.
It was fascinating. It was fascinating.
That was such a great segment. And with Jason Barnew still in travels and not able to join us tonight, we got you for the rest of the hour. and I'm looking forward to spending that time with you. But again, I can't thank you enough for sticking around like you did. It was a lot of work to put all that together, but it was well worth it. Especially, you get to see Jim's reaction. That
oh yeah,
means a lot. Means a
No,
lot.
that's once a year, and it just seems like it was just happening last year, and and Gustafson was getting his prize, and now he's giving it away. It seems like a year just flew by, but it's worth dissecting, and it's an epic event. So
It really
I
is.
enjoyed listening and to you guys chatting about that.
I really appreciate that. Lawrence, you have been a busy lad, and I know you have a new edition coming out on Bluefish Canada that you want to tell us about. But just before you do, just in case you've missed this podcast or any others, or if you're looking for content that Lawrence has previously done with a host of characters, please, I invite you to go over to Bluefish Radio and search his library. If you have Alexa, just ask Alexa, what's the newest addition to the newsletter from Bluefish Radio? And she'll play it, and there's be lots there. So with that being said, Lawrence, what are we talking about tonight?
Well, I got a few things. The news came out today, so if you're a subscriber to the Bluefish News, you'll get that in your inbox today, and over 5,000 people across Canada get it. If you want to get it, just visit bluefishcanada.ca. So there's a few podcasts in there that we're talking about. There's an editorial in there on champions of nature, and just a little reflection on the people I've come to know and really appreciate over many years in this sector, whether it's as a professional angler, with sponsors from the fishing industry, the marine industry, or in the conservation side of things. It's just amazing, Scotty, that it's the same people year after year after year, and they're the ones doing a lot of the heavy lifting to keep the industry moving forward. And it's you would think there's going to be tons of people. There's a ton of people working in these industries, but the people at the top that are sort of pushing it along, pushing these rocks up the hill and making things happen, it's just a small handful of them, and they're quite amazing people. It's a real passion project for every one of them, and we never really acknowledge them for the most part, until they retire. They're just not that kind of people that like to get in front of the social media and, play the algorithm game. They just do the stuff behind the scenes and have, they're just chipping away every day, and amazing people.
And it's so true. There's a lot of us, including myself, that, it's always nice to hear nice things, but, at the end of the day, we don't do it for the accolades. We do it because it needs to get done. And I'm sure I'm speaking for a lot of them because they recognize a deficiency, a gap, something that could be improved on. When it comes to our fishing, there is lots of work to do. There's still lots of work still to do when it comes to the educational aspect of it. Finding out folks are still fishing, illegally and not knowing that they need this, that, or anything else. I always say to Jim, when somebody falls through the ice, we just got to spend more time on it. We have not done enough to educate these people to stay off unsafe ice. That's just one example. But, as I said, as long as you folks are around, whether it's you, Jay, or Jim, we'll do our best to try and get the message out there. And hopefully our community who supports us and are sticking around as long as you have will do the same. Because, again, the work is never done when it comes to the angling community. So a shout out to all of those who have a hand in it. I will make it a promise that CFN will try and do its very best to acknowledge you as you've been acknowledged by Bluefish Canada and all of the other great groups that are doing incredible work out there. We'll try and get to all of you because you all deserve a pat on the back, because there's a collectively a good number of you that are doing some wondrous things.
Oh yeah. And if you guys have some names you want to suggest for a Bluefish Radio episode, let me know. Email me, at director@bluefishcanada.ca, and I'd love to reach out to these people and get them to talk about some of their concerns, some of their hopes, some of their dreams, some of their regrets. I had one on recently, Terry Rees. He just retired after 20 years of serving as executive director of the Federation of Ontario Cottagers Association. So this is a huge, huge association of all the lake and river cottage associations, right? They all register with FOCA, and he goes out and lobbies and, tries to steer government policy and legislation so it doesn't mess up property owners. And then at the same time, he's always working with property owners to make sure they don't mess up nature, right? With their septic systems and their docks and their whatever. So it's, he's always pushing both sides and making friends, making enemies. But he did it for 20 years, and not for the pay, not for the recognition. He did it because he believes in this stuff. So, just get him talking about that. And then he wrote an article about it, but you can find all those links in the Bluefish News. And then at the same time, I talked to Robert Pye. He worked for years and years with the Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters, communications director. And then all of a sudden he pops up as the new executive director of Watershed Canada, right? This guy, I don't know if he's near retirement or not. I have no idea. But, he's still committed to all of this. He's just finding a different venue and taking the leads of Watersheds Canada. They do all this shoreline and fish habitat restoration. And, he's bringing a new perspective to it and taking that organization over and just doing an amazing job. So that's just two, right? There's so many out there. So drop me a name, drop me a suggestion. And I love meeting with these local champions. They are our champions. They do so much at the local level. They're often just, if you know them locally, you know them, you love them. And if you don't, you've never heard of them, right? Because they're just hard at work.
It's so true. And when I think of FOCA, because I've had some dealings in the past with that group, and I would have to say that now I'm hoping it's not having as detrimental of effect as it once or first did when they took CFIP away. But some incredible work was done by cottagers in cooperation with the CFIP program. And ever since I heard that they kind of dismantled that program, I don't believe there's money, or at least not as much available as there once was. It really would cut into the amount of fantastic initiatives that are being done to our various cottage lakes as well as cottage associations.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, they got 600 volunteer water samplers that have been sending water samples in for the last 40 years. So, you talk about baseline, understanding what's going on with our lakes in Ontario, right? These guys have been working hard at that, tracking that, and creating a database for researchers to draw from. So just little things like that. Absolutely, amazing stuff.
I wanted to share this comment with you from our good buddy, Steve Shaw. Lawrence, I just wanted to say I used your An Overlooked Tragedy with Brent Sturton for an inclusion moment today at work. Dude, it touched me. And then he shared the link. That is, as I said, folks, take some time, copy that link and play it, because it truly is an inspiring moment. Steve, thanks so much for sharing that, my friend.
We're not done with that. I don't put my name behind. There's a lot of gadgets and, smoke and mirrors stuff that's developed to make blind people see again, blah, blah, blah. I've seen it all. I've tried most of it. And most of it is just smoke and mirrors, like I said. But when something really cool comes along, I get behind it. And I'm not done. I'm going back to London again shortly. And for the launch of the exhibit, and they're going to have an exhibit that's traveling through Europe and Australia, New Zealand, the United States. And I'm working with the CNIB here in Canada. They're getting involved with setting up a program that's going to make available tactile print pictures. So even like, the Bluefish Exploration Center, when we get young kids up there who are blind, deafblind, low vision, and they have spent time up there with us, we can take some pictures, get those pictures printed so they can feel those pictures and bring them home. Like bring home 5 pictures of your time at the nature center, of holding a fish, paddling a canoe, swimming, jumping off a dock kind of thing, right? So everyone wants to have pictures of them, of their summer experience. So it's just things like that, right? It's going to be so cool. And here's a picture of the lake. This is the lake you're on, and this is where we are. Here's the islands and all of that stuff, right? You can feel it all. It's going to.
You, my friend, you've experienced it firsthand, and we couldn't put ourselves in your place, even if we tried. So again, sharing that moment with us as raw and moving as it was, dude. As I said, I admire you with a fond greatness, and the fact that you're able to be so influential and still have an active role in this community, given your disability, is a true testament to the person you are. So.
I love it, man. I love it. So here's some news. So I thought we'd start on the committee that made up of 4 states and 1 province, Ontario, that sets the commercial harvest rates for 2024 for walleye and yellow perch on Lake Erie. So why do we care how many fish they're catching and in their nets? Because they also do a lot of science on how the health of that lake in terms of these 2 fish species. So how those rates go up and down, those numbers go up and down each year, is a good indication of the health of the lake. So here's something for walleye. So they call it total allowable catch, or TAC. So for walleye, 12,858 million fish will be allowed to be caught this year. 12,858 million fish are allowed. Walleye are going to be harvested out of Lake Erie this year. 12,858 million fish.
Okay, now I don't know if this is up from last year.
No, it's down 4.9%. So why is it down 4.9% from last year? Because the fish are getting bigger. So they don't want to remove more biomass. They want to remove the same amount of biomass they caught last year with the smaller fish. So they've reduced the number of fish, because this is numbers of fish. They reduced it by almost 5%, knowing that these fish are bigger. So they're all 5% bigger, I guess. So they'll get the same amount of fish out of the lake. They'll just have fewer of them.
That is a staggering amount of fish. And at the end of the day, let's be perfectly honest. There is a demand for this. You watch, not to digress, but you watch enough of these Patagonia documentaries in regards to farming fish in cages and everything that's being done across the seas in various countries when it comes to farming salmon. And you start to see that, as alarming as it is, there's a demand for this. Like, this is how much fish we require. At the end of the day, what are we going to do when this disappears? Like, what happens when they outlaw cages? What happens if they start to reduce the numbers of the catch in Lake Erie to a point that we can't sustain the need? We can't sustain the demand.
Well, it's so far it's doing well, buddy. Like they're managing this fishery well. Like it's not crashing.
Yeah,
it's being exploited at levels that aren't denting the population in a serious way, right? We've had good years of fertilization of new fish and walleye and perch. On perch, yellow perch, apparently the Central Basin is having a little bit of a trouble, but it's stabilized now. So the western and eastern areas of Lake Erie are doing well. But for perch, they count these in pounds. So the amount of pounds of perch that will be allowed to be caught in Lake Erie this year is 6,554 pounds. No, 6,554 million pounds of yellow perch will be harvested from Lake Erie this year. 6,554 million pounds of yellow perch.
So
it's down 0.3% from last year. So virtually the same.
And keep in mind, there are suggestions out there. I don't know if they have the science necessarily to prove it just yet, but there are concerns about the perch population in Lake Erie.
Central Basin's been struggling a bit. The other ends of the lake are doing well, but they said the Central Basin, the population is stabilized, so they didn't feel they had to reduce the catch this year because it's stable.
Interesting.
And they'll fish the other.
I like the fact that it's half as much as the walleye.
Well, because this is pounds, so walleye is 12,000 fish. This is 6,000 million
Okay.
pounds, and the other one is 12,000 million fish.
Well, I'd like to hope if there is a correlation, and I don't know what that is in terms of numbers of fish and pounds and what have you, but I'd like to know that there's a correlation to what's actually going on in the lake that will identify that there is a decreased population of perch, and that at this stage it makes sense to take more walleye than perch.
I've heard the walleye are eating the perch's lunch. There's so many of them, right?
They're designed. That's what they're designed for, and that's the unfortunate thing. I mean,
they compete. They compete with each other.
100% they do, and I would have to say that the primary diet for Lake Erie walleye is yellow perch.
Well, they're eating them for lunch too. Why didn't you think about that?
I'm hoping that they're picking up some gobies for breakfast and maybe some suckers at dinner time. But when it comes to lunch, they're primarily feeding on yellow perch, and it is concerning. I hope it all works itself out and Mother Nature, you take the wheel, because we can only do so much when it comes to science and education. And I'd like to think that our folks, when it comes to Lake Erie, at least the last couple of years anyway, have been getting it right. And the lake and the productivity of that lake is the true treasure.
Yeah. It's an amazing look. It's the most valuable freshwater fishery in the world. The Great Lakes have the most valuable freshwater fishery in the world. According to the Great Lakes Fishery Commission, it's worth about $250 million US. $250 million US a year. That's the commercial fishing side. The recreational fishing side, in terms of the amount of money spent and generated through recreational fishing, it's about $9 billion Canadian a year in the Great Lakes. So the commercial fishing is a drop in the bucket. I've talked to a lot of scientists. A lot of them say, there could be a lot more commercial fishing on the Great Lakes, and it wouldn't hurt it. It's just, we have some areas where there's over exploitation taking place, but for the most part, there's room for growth. But no one's handing out new licenses, and the people that have licenses are getting older and older. They'd like to sell their licenses, but no one really wants to buy the licenses for what they're worth, because it's a hard life. It's a hard life.
It is. Yep. True test. And you see the passion that these anglers have that was on full display out east, when they were impeding progress through, I think it was the Halifax City Council.
Oh.
And they were up. I know we're probably going to talk about that at some point.
Newfoundland. It was Newfoundland.
Newfoundland. Yeah. Newfoundland. My apologies, but you see the passion that the fishery basically engages and builds when it comes to commercial anglers and those who depend on it. Because you start taking people's livelihoods away, and you're playing with fire.
This is an interesting case, and I'm glad you brought it up. I didn't have it on my list today, but let's talk about it quick. So in Newfoundland, you have these small boat owners, right, that have these boats that go for 4 or 5 days at a time. It's an inshore fishery. The guy or gal who owns the boat, owns the fishing license, hires, 3 or 4 of their children, cousins, uncles, friends, neighbors, and they go fishing for a week or 4 days for whatever the season is, whether it's lobster or halibut or whatever. They're going after it. Bluefin tuna, whatever's open, they're going after it. These guys are multi-species fishers, but they can only sell their catch to these producers that have production centers established in the province of Newfoundland. And they said, what's going on is you got these 3 giant multinational companies that have set up processing plants on Newfoundland, Labrador soil, and they have to sell their catches to these producers. And they say the producers are making record profits, and the people doing the fishing are barely existing. Like they're not making money at all. They're barely paying the bills. And they say, how can that be true? How can that be fair? They're going out there risking their lives, right? And their investments, $100,000, $1 million boats and nets and all the gear. And they're risking it all, to go fishing in some not the nicest weather and water. That's tough conditions quite often. And they're making no money. And these 3 big production houses are making record profits. So they're saying, look, we're not going fishing anymore until you allow us to sell our catch to anyone we want to. Just like everybody else in Canada. Anyone else who catches fish in Canada can sell it to anyone else in Canada. for production, for distribution, whatever, processing, right? Turn it into fish sticks or fillets or whatever. In Newfoundland, they have, for some reason, they have a rule they have to sell it within Newfoundland. Well, the government caved and they've given these fishers the right now to sell their catch. And that's so important because if we want to buy their fish, if we want to buy that fish right from that boat in Newfoundland and say, hey, send me a box of that, we can do that now.
That is incredible. I didn't know that. Okay, so let me say congratulations to the Newfoundland anglers, because commercial anglers, what you've done is what the rest of this country should do. And I hate to get into politics, but you know, it's not surprising. It's not surprising that people go out and have to put life on the limb. They sacrifice their time away from their families, and at the end of the day, they cash in, you know, chump change in comparison to what the big industry is cashing in on. We do it with our soft lumber. We do it with our oils and our other natural resources like fish. You know, I think it's just this continuous lineup of people who think they're doing it the right way because this is how they're told to do it, and in the end, they're getting screwed.
Well, and what they want them to do is push them out of this industry so that they can go out. That, you know, these big multinational companies can just go buy a big factory boat that catches them, processes them, packages them right on the boat, and that boat stays out there for months at a time, right? And you work on that boat, you're getting, you know, minimum wage. You're not coming home for 2 or 3 months at a time, and you know, it's just a factory to make money for one giant company with shareholders. Yeah. And no one profits. No one profits.
I don't know what industry that this doesn't happen, especially when it's tied to a natural resource. Steve's mentioned this about the same as the beef. Packers make the money, farmers not so much. They get a lot of taxable discounts and abilities to sort of hide money and shelter money so that they don't necessarily just break even. But you know, listen, like, you wonder why we're selling all this farmland. It's not necessarily because it has great value. Because who would want to work their butts off every single freaking day and only get this much? Or at least whatever is decided by big corporations, this is what you're going to get. You know what? You're going to be happy with it.
Yeah. My dad told me we had a little piece of land in the middle of Ontario, sort of halfway between Collingwood and Flesherton and Markham and Dundalk. And it was an old farmstead, you know, really crappy land. But we went up there for years. My dad said he was a farmer he loved farming. He didn't get a chance to farm here in Canada, but he would have loved to. But he said he always notices when the economy is going bad and people are laid off, the farms come back to life because everyone has to, you know, they get laid off in the cities. So they move back to their family farms, clean up, you know, get the tractor running again and start plowing fields and, you know, planting crops. Because it's hard work, but at least you're going to make something, right? You're going to make some money. And then when the economy is going good again, they leave their farms and go back to the cities and get jobs in the factories and, you know, and get a salary and don't have all the headaches. But that's how hard farming is, right? Not to mention the fact that it's, as far as industries goes, you know, I mentioned here before that if you want to die at a job, become a professional fisher, right? If you want to get injured and disabled in a job, become a farmer.
Yeah.
All these big machines, right? All these wheels and all these machines and parts flying around and things spinning and mashing, and you know, you get your arms caught in there, your hands, your legs. You fall into them.
Let me share a great story, and I'm hoping my wife is not listening because this has to do with her family. But you know, I had a fond respect for her late father. God rest his soul, William. We're thinking about you tonight. He came over as the eldest of a family of, I don't know how many kids they had. I think it was in the 20s. His father decided to uproot from Holland and came over to Canada to start a new life. The first summer, doesn't the tractor roll over on the father and kill him?
Yeah, before roll bars, eh? Yeah, that was before.
And now her father, who is, I think, 18 at the time, he's the oldest of 20-odd kids. He now has to take on the responsibility of running that farm.
18.
You imagine?
Oh, that's crazy. And then you see too, family farms are family farms. So kids, like I was driving tractors when I was 12 years old, you know, and I'm legally blind. And I had my uncles and brothers on the back of the hay wagon loading hay. But I was the one driving because I wasn't big enough to lift the hay bales. So they made me drive. Right. And that's what happens on farms. You got kids working alongside adults, you know, little kids, you know, young kids working the big machines because that's what they can do. They can't, you know, lift and heave stuff, but they can run the machines. And it's, you know, little kids get killed on farms, man. It's family farm. And you know, normally there's no other industry where you can put kids to labor, but on farms, you're allowed.
Absolutely. That was one of the reasons they had kids. I know it's probably not, I don't know, a topic that you would want to talk about with great pride, because you never know how people take things. But yeah, I mean, let's face it, they had kids for the sake of helping out on the farm. Yeah. Corey, it is a big fear of mine that this is happening in Canada as well, that China is buying up a lot of the farmland, not just in the United States, but in Canada as well, because unfortunately, everything's for sale.
Yeah, that's got to stop.
Yep, everything's for sale.
Yeah. There's a bright spot in the farming sector in Canada, and then we'll get back to fishing, you guys. But young people under 35 are buying small farms. They're making less than $100,000 a year, but they're doing it. And this is an area of growth in the Canadian agricultural sector. Is these young people starting these sort of community-supported agriculture, where you get your box of vegetables once every 2 weeks or whatever delivered to your door. You go pick it up. Those farms. It's coming back. It's coming back, right?
They used to call them hobby farms. I don't know if they still call them hobby farms, but they are becoming, especially when you have fall fairs or you have events like we have here in Brampton, where, you know, the farmers market goes on.
Farmers markets,
It's the only thing I wish is if they, and I appreciate the fact that it's an organic product, that it is grown perhaps differently than big production type farms. Just keep the prices reasonable. Like at the end of the day, some of these prices at these farms or fall fairs and what have you, the farmers market, they're a little elevated. And, you know, if you really truly want to put it to big business, if we have an equal alternative that is grown organically and in our backyard, who's not going to buy it, right? Who's not going to buy it? I know I'll buy it. I know I go down to these farmers. And I do look for the deals, and I feel bad that we have to, but you do look for the deals, because sometimes it's, you know, I don't want to say they're jacking the price up, but they understand what it is. And I understand the amount of work and effort that goes into it. But if you found a way to just not necessarily mirror what's in the grocery stores, but close to, man, you'd sell a lot of stuff.
I agree. No, we've done statistics, and, you know, half the population in Canada will buy stuff for moral reasons, ethical reasons, philosophical, their values, right? You know, they want to support something, and they don't mind paying extra to you know, exercise their values. But the other half of the population, they need to buy economics, right? They need to find value, because we don't have money to you know, we have rent to pay or mortgages to pay, and, you know, all the rest of it of life. And we can't just go out and, you know, drop an extra 25% on a grocery bill just to make some guy's farm operational and feel good about ourselves.
Well, listen, I would rather buy local when it comes to everything, whether it's my meat, my cheese, my vegetable. I'd like to buy everything local, and for no other reason than the Bill Landrys of the world, who are running farms. I want to buy your stuff. I hate that a supermarket decides what I want to eat. I don't like that. I would much rather say, you know what, Bill, I'm going to drive to your place, or, you know, the end of your drive, and I'm going to buy whatever you've got on your cart that you're selling. Would I pay a little bit extra for doing that? 100%. But when you go to some of these fall fairs and farmers market, the prices sometimes are a little bit too elevated. But that's just my take.
Don't go the one. Look, there's one in my neighborhood over in Lansdowne, and it's, you know, they're playing to the richy rich over there, and oh my God, the prices are just extraordinary. You know, those guys see them coming. But if you go outside of the community a little bit, where you're really getting the farmers, and you're really, you know, these are people that are just picking, and you know, we got this, we got extra. We sold what we could to the grocery stores, but we got extra. It's a good year. You know, you can buy from them, or you can do these community supported agricultures. Just you pay up front, and you get a basket. You get a box every two weeks, and that's what's ready to pick, and that's what you're going to eat.
100%.
And it's lot better for you than processed food, that's for sure.
Good
Hey, I got
Lord.
one more thing here on commercial fishing. This is some interesting news. But last year, the World Trade Organization got together and came up with a treaty about commercial fishing in the high seas. So this is outside our economic zone. You know, we have we have a territory that goes out from our shore that is part of Canada, and then we have another section that goes up beyond that, about 300 kilometers off the shore. That's our economic zone. We don't own it, but we control who gets to fish in there and who doesn't, and who gets to put oil wells down in there and who doesn't. All of that, anything that involves economics, right? We have control over that.
Yep.
So the World Trade Organization said, is the rest of the ocean where most of the fishery, trickery is happening out there in the ocean, outside these economic zones, where these big boats turn off their transponders, go fish in areas where they shouldn't be fishing, catch fish they shouldn't be catching, process those fish and call them things that they aren't, mislabeling them, to sell fish they shouldn't be catching, or just all sorts of trickery. And anyway, so the World Trade Organization said it made a treaty. Canada signed it today. There's 88 countries out of the World Trade Organization now that have signed this treaty, but 60 nations out of the WTO have to sign it and ratify it, which means you have to pass legislation in your own parliament saying that we believe in this and this is how we're going to implement it ourselves for our own fisheries. We're going to set up these rules. So we haven't done that yet. So there's some more heavy lifting to do. But once they reach 60 countries in the world that do this, every other country that participates in the WTO then has to follow those rules, right? That's what the WTO is. If you want to be in the WTO, you have to follow the rules.
Good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to be in charge of governing that.
Oh, it's a shit show, man. Like, it's really hard to do. Like, to get it's like herding cats. But they get there. And they get there once in a while. They get there and they pull off these, like, wow, you did it. Good, good for you. And they'll get this one done. I'm pretty sure they will, because everyone wants it done. Everyone wants to stop the nasty players from going out there and raping the oceans. And I don't have to mention names, but you guys can imagine who they are, right? Yep. Ones that have 6,300 giant fishing boats ranging around the world, when the United States has 1,000, Europe has 1,000, and then you got one country that has 6,300 giant fishing boats just roaming around out there, hoovering up ocean fish and everything else. So this is a way to get some control on that. So let's hope it works.
Let's hope it does. And yeah. Steve has shared the link. As always, Steve, thanks so much for sharing these links. But folks, if you want to get informed of what Lawrence is talking about, please copy and paste that. And it's an interesting read, to say the least.
Yeah. Oh, what do you think, buddy?
Well, as always, dude, our time flies. It has been 2 hours, and I know I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'm sure there's others out there that have been joining us that have been jumping in and out. At the end of the day, all I can say is thanks so much for sticking around so long for us. But again, as always, we're well rewarded for it, and thank you so much, buddy.
My pleasure, man. Thanks, everyone, and send me your hero nomination so I can meet these people and get their stories told.
Sounds awesome, Lawrence. You have yourself a great week, man. We'll see you back here on Monday.
Thanks, buddy.
Okay, all the best, dude. There it is, another show. We've shared some tears, we've shared some joy, we've had lots of fun, and thanks for all those who have stuck around from the beginning, because it's not easy to do. It's 2 hours. I appreciate whatever time that you can involve yourself. It means the world for those like Jim, Lawrence, and Jay that come here. I would love nothing more than to see their views go up, because, as I said, I think they bring a great message and some great wisdom to our panel and to our community. On that note, thanks to you all. Love you all. You guys take care of yourself. You have yourselves a great week. As I say, next week we're going to have Moose and Kyle as special guests talking about CanCast. We will, of course, have Jay and Trevor and hopefully Owen, so we could talk a little bit more about the Bassmaster Kayak Series and their championship that went on also this weekend. But until then, have yourselves a great week. For those who are getting out fishing, thank you. we're able to watch and live vicariously through you, whether you're Jim Fowler, whether you're Sonia or Manny, who had a follow today for a big pike. We look forward to seeing your journeys. We look forward to seeing your adventures, and we share in your passion. We share in your joy. We love it. Dave, it's time to take us away, dude. Do it as only Dave, who, in my opinion, and few others who said this in the comment, there is no better MC on the planet than Dave Mercer. Take it away, buddy.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all good things must end.